Welcome back to Behind the Caution Tape. I am your host, CrashLit. It's good to be back in LA, recording to you from the Surf House here at USC. But yeah, it was definitely a fun week. I got 2 episodes in. If you didn't see, I did an episode rundown from Alaska and also interviewed Olympic gold medalist Tommy Moe last week. But now we're back in LA, as I said, for episode number 40 of Behind the Caution Tape. So to everyone who's been subscribing, downloading, listening, sharing this podcast, thank you so much for your support. This has been so much fun to do, and I'm really excited to keep this going. I think it's now been 7 months, I believe. If it's almost 7 months, I think Wednesday it'll be 7 months since we launched. But anyways, let's get into everything. So let's start with a bit of football news. So the spring season starts tomorrow, spring practices. So definitely hoping to be following the news and seeing what questions emerge and what answers we get, especially with the quarterback battle is going to be, I think, really interesting with Jaden Mayava and Hassan Longstreet. And even I definitely also want to see what Sam Heward is doing, especially because his uncle Luke is now the quarterbacks coach and offensive coordinator for the Trojans. So I'm really excited to see just what this season brings. And as I've said, I actually think this season, I think it's going to be a turning point. And I'm not just saying that because of the hype. It actually seems like the results are there. Everything is in position for USC to be successful. So that's why I'm really thinking, I think this is going to be USC's year. I think they're going to take that big next step in 2025 under Lincoln Riley, especially with, I think, just hearing how Chad Bowden was talking when he interviewed on the Victory podcast with Keely Orr a few weeks ago. He was just saying, we're here. It's and I think he was just really confident, just everything that USC's capable of. And I think he's really bought into the place. I think everything is going to be so good. I think it's going to be a really great year. So I'm super excited. This is it. So let's go. Anyways, on to track and field, who started the outdoor season by hosting the Ron and Charlene Alice Trojan Invitational on Friday and Saturday over the weekend. USC won 13 events to start the outdoor season. And up next, he'll take part in the Battle on the Bayou, which will be hosted by LSU from March 20th and 29th. Swim and dive had their women finish 11th at the NCAAs in Federal Way. That event ran from Wednesday to Saturday. And congrats on an incredible season. Numerous All-American honors to the team. The men's will also be in Federal Way starting Wednesday and running through Saturday. So best of luck to them this week. Rowing is back in action and will take part in the San Diego Crew Classic on Saturday and Sunday. And I think just the big thing was they had that great dual win over UCLA at the start of the month. And I think they just need to keep that momentum going from that in order to do well. And I'm really excited to see how Kelsey Shadoin's squad's do in this event. Soccer, meanwhile, didn't play last weekend, but will see their next action in their spring season at Pepperdine against the Waves on Saturday at 10 a.m. Men's golf took part in the Fight On Alumni Challenge in Scottsdale at Whisper Rock Golf Club. That ran all last week over spring break from March 16th through the 21st. And up next, they're back to action in the Cowboy Classic, which will be hosted by Wyoming from March 31st through April 1st in Maricopa. So yeah, definitely excited to see how these guys do. Women's golf, meanwhile, won the battle for the bell against UCLA last week. I think I was talking about it a little bit because it may have just been getting started or as I was recording. And they won 3.5 to 1.5. And up next, they'll be taking part in the Charles Schwab Women's Invitational hosted by TCU at Colonial Country Club. And that'll be running from today and tomorrow. So some of the best schools in the country, I think, including some of the best schools. So 15. So really good. They actually start that today. So the lineup is Jasmine Koo, Catherine Park, Bailey Shoemaker, Cindy Koo, and Kylie Chong. And I think USC just needs to continue to be dominant throughout the tournament to, continue their success they've had throughout the year. Men's tennis announced that their duel against UCLA will be rescheduled to April 1st at 5 p.m. at Marks Stadium, who's rained out initially due to weather, but they are getting it back on next week. So if you're in the area, definitely try to make it down. Should be a good duel. But 1-1 on the week. They beat Northwestern on Friday 4-1, but then lost 4-2 to Illinois on Sunday. Both of those duels on the road. And against NU, USC won the doubles point with Volodymyr Aiku Benko, Carl Lee, and Connor Church winning their singles matches, and to help USC beat NU 4-1. But against Illinois, USC did get the doubles point, but didn't get any singles matches won. So it was definitely a tougher match there. They now sit at 9-5 overall, 3-1 in Big Ten play. Up next, they come back home to host UW, who's 10-5 and 2-3 on Friday, and then Oregon at 5, and then Oregon, who's 9-8, 0-4 on Sunday at noon, and UW is 10-5, 2-3. If I didn't say that, so two big duels this weekend. So USC needs to come ready to go and get back on track, especially after that tough loss against the Illini. Women's tennis also split their weekend series, but it was at home at Marks Stadium, so they got a 4-0 win against Michigan State on Saturday, and then lost yesterday 4-2 to Michigan. So against MSU, USC got the doubles point, and with Grace Piper, Imi Haddad, and Jana Hassam winning their singles matches to sweep the Spartans. But against the Wolverines, Michigan took the double point, and while Grace Piper, Emma Charney, and Imi Haddad won their singles matches, Michigan also got 3 singles matches. So it came down really close, but definitely a well fought. So USC now sits at 9-3 and a 3-1 Big Ten mark. They go on the road next week to face Penn State, who's 12-4, 3-3 on Friday at noon, and then at Ohio State, who's 11-2, 5-1 on Sunday at 9 a.m. So two big road duels against two good teams in the Big Ten. So USC just needs to continue to play well and just give themselves a chance to really do well this year. And it seems like they're on a good track. Lacrosse split their weekend. They lost at number 11 Michigan 11-9, but then beat number 19 Ohio State 9-8. So Maddie Dorr led with 3 goals against both the Wolverines and the Buckeyes. And USC had a strong first quarter against the Wolverines. Michigan fought their way back in the second half to win it, and it was a really close game. So you're seeing this team really show some fight. But then against Ohio State, USC started off strong, but then held off and prevented a late Buckeye comeback to win their first ever Big Ten conference game. So really excited for them for that. But it just shows that this team, I think, can compete. And obviously the season started out really tough with that loss to Stanford. It seems like this team's starting to come together and really figure out how to play. And I'm really hoping to try to make it down at some point. Not sure what that's going to look like or when, but got to just see how everything shakes out. But yeah, but for this team, as I've mentioned previously, all remaining home games, which I think there are 3 left, will be at Dignity Health Sports Park, and USC is now 8-3 on the year, 1-2 in Big Ten play, moved up from 21st to 18th in this week's poll. And up next, they will host Northwestern on Sunday at noon on the Big Ten Plus. Northwestern is 8-1 overall, 2-0 in Big Ten play, so it's going to be another tough test for the Trojans. And it's head coach Lindsey Monday's alma mater, so she's going to be motivated for this one, but it just shows that there are a lot of good teams in the Big Ten. It's a really good lacrosse conference, so USC's got to come ready for this one, especially with these big teams coming out here. But really excited for what's in store for this team, especially after getting their first Big Ten win against a good Ohio State team. Beach volleyball was in Rivera Beach last Tuesday for 2 duels, where they lost to TCU 3-2 and then beat Palm Beach State College 4-1 in an exhibition. So USC definitely, I think, was changed a few pairs around for those 2 duels, and I'm really interested to see what head coach Dane Blanton does this weekend in Baton Rouge. So now 15-4 on the year. I imagine they'll probably stay around number 4, especially because TCU is number 3. We'll see how it all shakes out with the rankings that come out, I believe, Wednesday. So up next, they take part in the Death Volley Invitational hosted by LSU. That'll be on Friday and Saturday. So Friday, they take on host LSU at 8:30 and Florida State at 12:15. And then on Saturday, they got a rematch with TCU at 7:15 a.m. and then followed by Texas at 12:15. So USC's going to get another crack at TCU for I think it's the school's 3rd duel of the year. Then they got also good opportunities against good opponents, especially with LSU, Florida State, and Texas join the MPSF next season. And in addition, South Carolina will also be in that group. But you're going to really see USC have to face these teams a lot more, especially with the MPSF really making a claim to become probably the best beach volleyball conference, especially because even though the Pac-12 isn't playing this year for beach volleyball, the MPSF has the majority of the teams and then added Grand Canyon. So it's still a really strong conference. And especially you add opponents like the three I just mentioned in LSU, FSU, and Texas. It's going to make for a really competitive and exciting conference next year. So I'm really excited to see what that looks like. Men's volleyball was off last week, but moved up to number three after winning the Outrigger Invitational in Hawaii last weekend and going 3-0. So they now sit at 16-2 on the year, 4-0 in MPSF play. And up next, they're back in action to face Grand Canyon on Friday at 7 and Saturday at 5 as they'll resume MPSF play with 8 matches remaining. And as I said last week, this team does not leave Southern California again for the remainder of the season. They have a couple of away games at UCLA and Pepperdine, but it's pretty much the home stretch here. So USC needs to take advantage of the home matches they got coming their way. And USC is they as I said, they moved up to number 3. And they have a good chance to solidify good positioning in both conference and as well the national NCAA conversation is doing better during MPSF play will ensure more buys during the conference tournament because they added Vanguard and Menlo to the conference. The MPSF did restructure how the conference tournament will be run. And basically, I'll get more into it as it gets closer and USC's position becomes clearer. But basically, the better you do in the regular season, the less matches you got to play to win the conference tournament and secure the automatic bid, which I really like because it just rewards the teams that do better during the regular season. But best of luck to them this week. Women's water polo. Before we get into the action, a big congratulations to Tilly Kearns and Emily Osmus to both being named to the Peter J. Coutinho Award watch list, which goes to the award that goes to the best player in college water polo every year. So the team's now 23-1 on the season, 2-0 in MPSF play. Likely to stay at number 2 due to Stanford still being a solid 15-0. But Morgan Netherton, but against USC won at number 5 Cal 13-9 on Saturday, then came back home and then beat number 22 Brown 23-9 on Sunday. So 2 big wins for the Trojans to really keep things going. We'll start with the game against the Bears. So USC. So Morgan Netherton led with 5 goals against Cal, and Emily Osmus led with 6 against Brown. So the game versus Cal was much closer, and USC had using a strong second quarter to take the lead against the Bears to really, propel them to a really tight win because it was really back and forth. But against Brown, USC dominated the entire game, especially with a strong second quarter. So up next, USC stays home for MPSF play versus the team that's likely going to remain at number 1 in Stanford, who is 15-0 on the year, so undefeated, 2-0 in conference play. USC's lone loss this year is to Stanford. That game will be Saturday at 1 p.m. You can watch on overnight.com. Remember, overnight does not have an I in it. And then, so it's a big matchup that could allow USC to reclaim the number 1 spot in the country with a win. So really excited for this game. Baseball had a big week going 3-1. They got a 6-3 win at Arizona State on last Tuesday with stellar performances from Braden Dowd and Dean Carpentier, both hitting 2-run home runs to help USC beat its former Pac-12 rival. And against the and then USC after that game against ASU came back home, played 3 games at Great Park against Nebraska, and took 2 of 3 against the Cornhuskers in Irvine. They got a 5-3 win on Friday, lost 6-5 on Saturday, and then won in dominant fashion 7-1 on Sunday, a game that last of which I was at due to being back from my trip and not wanting to miss March Madness. But for the first game, Caden Hunter was crucial, having 7 Ks in 7 innings on Friday. So really dominant game from him there. And then a back and forth game almost went USC's way, but unfortunately there was a blown save by Ethan Hedges in the 9th on Saturday that allowed the Huskers to win. But then 5 shutout innings from Grant Govell and home runs by Bryce Martin Grudzelanek, Maximo Martinez, and Adrian Lopez helped USC take the series on Sunday with a dominating win. One unfortunate thing that did happen was Richard Tejeda was hit in the head with a foul ball. He's a catcher and did have to be let out. He did have to leave in an ambulance. So wishing the best to him and wishing him a speedy recovery. But yeah, definitely was fun. Definitely great to see him out in the lineup on Sunday and getting a catch. But like I said, just wishing him the best in his recovery. But other than that, but on to how USC's next week. They're now 14-9 overall, 4-5 in Big Ten play. So up next, USC will host UCI, who's 15-5 on the year, on tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at LMU. That'll be on the Big Ten Plus, and then they head to Bloomington to take on Indiana, who's 13-11 overall, 5-4 in Big Ten play from Friday through Sunday. First game's on 3 p.m. on Big Ten Plus. All these times are Pacific, by the way. 11 a.m. on Big Ten Plus, and then the final game will be 9 a.m. on the Big Ten Network. So big opportunity for some good TV exposure, especially after the first game of the Nebraska series on Fox Sports 1. I actually caught a few innings before as I was leaving Alaska, so that was cool to see. But USC beat UCI 5-2 at Cicerone Field, so UCI's home field for their fourth game of the season. But they need to be ready for the rematch, especially because UCI is going to be angry and they're a good team. Ben Orloff has led a very good squad the last few years. Like this team is probably UCI is probably making the postseason, so USC's got to come ready, especially against these good teams that Orloff has been putting out for the last few years. And then IU hasn't looked too good overall, but they have a winning record, both overall and in conference play. So USC's got to be ready, especially going to Bloomington and especially, longer travel. But I think USC can do it. This team has shown the ability to beat good teams. They've got UCI, Vanderbilt. They can do this again. So I'm really excited for this team. It seems like they've kind of turned that corner, especially with getting some big wins this week, especially against ASU and those 2 wins against Nebraska. But excited for the game tomorrow. Then finally, women's basketball is the number 1 seed in the Spokane Region 4. Got a 71-25 win over number 16 UNC Greensboro. Juju Watkins led with 22 points, and USC did start slow in the first quarter. It was really tight, especially as I showed up. I think I showed up with 4 minutes left in the first quarter. Because my flight, I had to unfortunately be late because my flight got delayed and then just had to get from OC to Galen. So really, had to it was full go mode once we touched down in OC, but glad I was able to make it to that game. But USC did pick up in the second quarter, and the second half just dominated win their first game. Juju did, I think, jam her finger, then also, I think, landed funny, but she seems like she's going to be okay and ready to play tonight against Mississippi State. But really, the key to the game was just defense, led by Ram Marshall. But USC does need to shoot better. You can't have a slow start like you do, especially when you're facing a team like Mississippi State. So Trojans are 29-3 overall. They will face number 9 Mississippi State at 7 p.m. at Galen Center tonight on ESPN. So Mississippi State beat number 8 Cal, and were in control pretty much the whole time against Cal. And I think they're well battle tested. Being in the SEC, they did win 59-46 over Cal, but they've had to face some good teams, especially like you got your South Carolinas, your Texas, your LSU, Tennessee, even some really good teams in the SEC. So USC can't has to be ready tonight and just cannot have a slow start. And as I said with UNC Greensboro, sure, maybe they weren't that good in compared to a team like USC, but they won over 25 games. And just winning that many games alone, and I think at one point I heard they had a 14-game winning streak. It shows that you can just, even doing that is impressive on its own, no matter who it's against. So this team's going to be ready. That team's going to be right. And Mississippi State, I think, is a better team. So USC's cannot start slow against the Bulldogs. So with a win, they will face number 5 Kansas State in the Sweet 16 on Saturday in Spokane. Time and TV are still TBD. It'll probably come out tomorrow after the game, and then if they beat K-State, they'll take part in the Elite Eight on Monday in Spokane with a potential and very likely UConn rematch. USC did beat the Huskies in Connecticut early at the start of the season, but then also did lose to the Huskies last year in the Elite Eight. But still, really exciting times. So definitely, I think it's definitely going to be a big weekend for all teams, for just this women's basketball big week, big game tonight. So really excited to be at that one. And then before I get into the final stuff, a big congratulations to head coach Lindsay Gottlieb for being named a finalist for the Naismith Coach of the Year Award. She's been named a finalist. So really excited for her. I think she's absolutely earned it with just how she's just put this team together and just steady build of just how how much improved this team has been from when she got here. She had a vision, she clearly executed it, and has gotten everyone to buy in. And I think there's no better example of this than Rhea Marshall and Clarice Akunwafo, who didn't commit to her but were freshmen, so they came the same year as I did. They were freshmen. They completely bought into what she wanted to do, and they stayed with it the whole time, even when. And I think really just saw this team get better and better. So, and that's why this team is now very much in a position to win the national championship. And I truly believe that they can do it this year. This is their year. So, really looking forward, like I said, to the game tonight. So I'll see y'all there. Finally, to close out, I went 2-0 last week. Got the women's basketball win against UNC Greensboro, and then the baseball win against the. So basketball was on Saturday. Baseball win against Nebraska yesterday. So that puts me at 79-25 on the season, 291 and 107 all time. And I'm 5-5 at baseball and 15-1 at women's basketball. So my plans are for the week. So a lot of it is still up in the air. I know I usually like to have that all confirmed and clarified, but I'll explain in a minute. So the for sure games are going to be women's basketball night against Mississippi State and baseball tomorrow night against UCI. Those are the for sures. And then I may go to Spokane for the Sweet 16 and possibly the Elite 8. It all just depends on just kind of how my school load looks and everything like that. So if I don't go there, I will definitely be at men's volleyball on Friday and Saturday against Grand Canyon, women's water polo on Saturday against Stanford, and women's lacrosse against Northwestern on Sunday. But it all just depends on if I go to Spokane for the second weekend of the March Madness and for how long. I just got to, like I said, figure out what that would look like and if I can even just swing it with my class schedule. So that's going to do it for us here on Behind the Caution Tape. Thank you again to everyone who's been tuning in. It's been so much fun to do this over the last 7 months now. And yeah, thank you to everyone who supported me in getting to episode number 40. Really looking forward to keeping this all going. And if you see me, let's chat. So make sure to check out my website, CrashLit.com, and be sure to follow me everywhere at CrashLit on social media. I'll see you all Wednesday, actually, because I will be interviewing USC soccer alum, two-time NCAA champion, and current member of the Portuguese national team, Maria Alagoa. She's going to join me on Wednesday, so be sure to tune in then. Thanks again for all the support, and fight on.